Friends, there is a lot in this story of our ancestors as we continue our journey of exploration of these ancient ancestors in the faith. Way too much for me to fully unpack. So I'm going to focus in on one piece, and I have a question, as I so often do for the children. You all were good at responding earlier to an either-or kind of question, so I ask you, consider the actions of Jacob as shared in the reading that Kim offered just now. Jacob having made this stew, and being encountered by his brother, a little bit older than him, twins, him coming in famished. And he said, hey, I want some of this food, right? Sell me your birthright. Because the eldest got more stuff, right, when the father died back in that time. Let me have all that is going to be going to you, is what Jacob was saying, as his brother is standing there about to faint, perhaps, we can imagine. How would you rate Jacob's behavior? Is this behavior to be condoned or condemned? Is this behavior to be emulated or avoided? Okay, how many of you think emulate this behavior? Act like Jacob. This is who we're supposed to be at our best as human beings. Right? Don't see any hands up. How many of you think this is behavior that we are to avoid and to condemn? If we see this, if we are acting like this, we want somebody to call us out on it. Maybe you don't want people to call you out on it, but yeah. Right? This is not faithful behavior. Y'all passed the test, at least according to me. This is not the behavior that we are supposed to engage in. And this is the tip of the iceberg with Jacob, because the story continues with him and with his brother Esau a couple of chapters later, when it's not just the birthright at stake, but a blessing. A deathbed blessing where Isaac has grown old and his sight has grown weak. And his beautiful, lovely, wonderful wife, Rebecca, overhears her telling their eldest son, Isaac's favorite, go kill some game and bring me a meal so that I might bless you. Meals are important. Meals continue to be important for us. But certainly that ritual meal was needed for that blessing to take hold. So Esau goes out to hunt because he is a great hunter, furry red guy that he is. And Rebecca goes and finds Jacob, her favorite, who already has a birthright under his belt, and she tells him, go on and get your blessing now. Bring me some goats from the flock. I will cook it for you, and then you'll go in and you'll pretend that you're Esau. And he's like, I don't know, Mom. I'm not hairy like Esau. I don't smell like him because I hang out in the tents with you. But she helps him. Don't worry about it. We put on Esau's nicest cloak, and you know what? Your father, his sight is so poor at this time, we'll just put the fur of the kids, the goats, on you so he'll feel that hair. And Jacob's like, okay. So she cooks the food, he heads in, it's pretty fast. Isaac is surprised. Meals don't usually come about that quickly at this time, especially when you're out hunting for them. Who is it? And Jacob downright lies to his dying father, who doesn't know how many days, how many moments he will have left in this life. And he said, it is your son Esau. Isaac's not completely out of it. He hears the tone of Jacob's voice and says, are you sure, son? And he tests him. He brings him in closer. He feels his hairiness, and he smells the aroma of Esau on those clothes. They didn't have the technology that we have today to shower, to launder our clothing, right? So I'm sure that cloak held on to some of that aroma, we shall say, of Esau. And Jacob gets the blessing. He gets it all. He gets all the glory and the beauty and the wonder that comes from an eldest son's blessing. And then Jacob goes off and Esau enters the scene. And once again, his younger by maybe a couple of minutes brother has duped him. So to Jacob's exploitation and manipulation, his unsavory behavior, if you will, from that previous scene, now we add to his list of negative attributes deception, deceit, and downright lying. I remind you, and will remind you again within the next couple of weeks, that Jacob, he gets renamed pretty soon. Jacob gets renamed none other than Israel. Israel. The one that's mentioned all over the biblical text, God's chosen people, that's Jacob and his progeny. The 12 tribes of Jacob, the 12 tribes of Israel come from him. So again, what are we to make of these stories? What are we to make of this ancestor in the faith, that our ancestors in the faith who sometime later wrote down these stories and held this one up as their namesake ancestor? One important enough to be renamed by the divine God self, just like Abram was renamed Abraham, Jacob named Israel. Are we to condone this behavior? Are we to emulate it? Is that what our ancestors are trying to tell us and we've just screwed it up? I don't think so. I'm still on board with you all who didn't like Jacob's earlier behavior and probably, I would imagine, didn't like his later behavior encouraged by his mother. What then does it tell us? What does it show us? What does it reveal to us? Well, at least one thing that it illumines for me is that even when we are imperfect, even with our faults and our flaws, God doesn't give up on us. God doesn't leave us. God continues to work with us and through us to love us and to guide us, even when we've made epic mistakes in our lives. Over these past 4 weeks, 5 weeks or so, we have been looking at our history. 200 years we are celebrating this year. And I mentioned on the first Sunday that we began looking at this history that history is complex. Clearly, our ancestors in the faith got that. Our history as First United is complex. We spoke 2 weeks ago about our journey, some of that journey to becoming open, welcoming, and affirming, right? We lifted up the ordination of Jean McAfee. That happened under the senior ministry of Tom Sun. And then the church, the congregation continued on the path toward becoming open, welcoming, and affirming under the ministry of Reverend Jack Skiles. Wonderful, amazing, beautiful things happening here. And history is complex. And some of you who were here in 2004, and some of you were here in 2019, know what I learned when I read a church profile as I was searching for a new congregation to serve. In that profile, I learned that both Reverend Skiles and Reverend Sun had engaged in behavior that was inconsistent with the minister's code of ethics and had left abruptly. They both were human. They both made mistakes. And they both continue to be loved and embraced by the divine. God continues to work with them and through them. And in those moments, at those moments, the profile went on to share. This community, this congregation, First United Church, recommitted to accepting and embracing the brokenness of all people and to loving them fully. Friends, we do well to remember this essential truth that there is nothing, absolutely nothing we can do that will diminish God's love for us. And it's helpful to remember, as Paul reminds us as well, we all sin and fall short of the glory of God. And as Jesus illumines for us, reveals for us in his earliest community in the Gospel of John, when a woman has been accused of adultery, and he says, hey, all you out there ready to stone her, whoever is without sin, go ahead and cast the first stone. Each and every one of us messes up. Each and every one of us causes hurt and causes harm. Each and every one of us sins. That's what that means. And as Jesus' entire ministry proclaimed, and as Paul reminds us again in Romans, that there is nothing, not a thing in the world, not a thing in the heights of heaven or in the earth below, nothing at all can separate us from the love of God. So friends, as we learn from our ancestors in faith thousands of years ago, and as we learn from our ancestors in faith from decades ago, let us recommit with them to acknowledging that I mess up, that you mess up, that we mess up, and that God still loves you and will work with you and through you and will never leave you alone. And that goes for those sinners out there too, let me remind you. So friends, I invite you, breathe in the Spirit of our God. Breathe out and trust that you are loved. Again, breathe in the Spirit of God. And breathe out and experience, know, trust with every fiber of your being, with all that you are, with your gifts and with your flaws. You are fully, wholly, completely loved. Amen.